amaze.
Like. Yes,
Follow. Subscribe. Oh, wait, no. This
Two bros lit. 3.
What? We are reading the book, and I'm actually kind of disappointed. Do you see the cover here?
I do, yeah. Ryan Gosling?
I'm so disappointed. So I
Why?
bought this book 3 years ago, or two or 3 years ago when it first came out, and this is the Kindle book. So I bought it a long time ago, and I had the original cover on it on my Kindle book, and they changed it to this movie crap, which actually I watched the movie and it was really good, by the way.
We almost watched it last night, but I had to do my taxes. I had to finish my taxes.
Wow, you're cutting it kind of close.
Well, nah, because in Germany I got till the end of June because I am international. So I don't have to file my taxes until international expats they have until like the end of June to file their taxes. But I try to get them in because my tax guy gets really upset when I don't get it in by April 15th because I think he just wants to get all of his taxes done by April 15th. So I busted it out last night. Hopefully I get a couple of $1,000 back in refund.
I got a lot back in refund.
Tell the people how much you got back. Because I'm jealous. You got a lot back, man.
I got a lot back. I don't
think I'm going to get as much back, but I usually when we were on Guam, because the way the government worked on Guam was you file your taxes in 2020, but you wouldn't get the refund from 2016 until 2020. So they were like,
holy cow.
Right. So we always tried to owe instead of not owe.
Well, that's smart anyway.
And that's what we've been doing ever since in our taxes. We always try to owe. And so right now, since we've been in Germany, we've always owed some. Not a lot, but enough to like, man, that's a lot of money. So...
And I'm sitting over here with my massive refund that I got, right. And you're like, punch you right in the face.
I know. Hey, let's talk about the cigar because we've been smoking for about 30 minutes already, but
mine is already like, well, it's probably 1/3. It's 1/3 done.
I'm about a fourth through.
Technical issues this morning that Brent still has to work on, so we've jiggered a connection to where I'm using my regular setup, my headphones.
What is jiggered?
Jigger.
What is jiggered?
Jiggered.
I never heard this word before.
Well, jiggered means like you put like different stuff together in order to make it work. Like you jigger it all together.
Okay, I just never heard of that word before.
So I've said that word a lot, and now that I'm saying it, it sounds like a bad word.
Oh man.
No, it doesn't mean anything bad.
That sounds like a word Dr. Grace would use to jigger up something on the Hail Mary because whatever wasn't working.
What does the word jiggered mean? I'm typing it in ChatGPT to see what it comes up with. Jiggered, British informal word that can mean very tired, broken, and used as a mild exclamation, like "I'll be jiggered." No, that's not.
That is not the way we say it.
I don't know why I say that.
MacGyvered? Maybe you're thinking of MacGyvered.
Yeah. So that's the same. It has the same meaning to me.
Okay.
Like I jiggered it all together.
I got you. No,
like I
MacGyvered
it together.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know. This is I really got it because because it doesn't sound good. Like I always use that word, and if it doesn't sound good and people don't know the meaning, then I need to stop using that word. That's bad. Okay, so what are you smoking today, Brent? Because I know you're super excited about it.
Brian, since you introduced me to the Perdomo brand,
no, it's Perdermo.
Perdermo. Yeah. I'm hooked, man. I smoked a Lot 32. I think it was on Wednesday, and it was okay. But I have the 10th anniversary today because it's our 10th episode. And last episode, you talked a little bit about how most podcasts don't get past that 10th episode mark. And so just celebrating the 10th episode with a Perdomo, 10th anniversary. It's hard to say it once you start saying it, it's hard to not say it. What you smoking?
It's good, isn't it?
It's very good.
I sent you because Perdomo started their own podcast. They put up their first episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I listened to it. And so I really like them. I've heard them on a lot of other podcasts. Like, they seem like really good people, right? But that whole first episode was, buy our product, buy our product, buy our product. And I was like, that's kind of disappointing. But they said that and I thought it was funny because they were talking about their new collaboration, which we talked about on a previous episode, the father-son collaboration.
Right.
And they were like, you can get them in chests of 50, and it works out to only $15 per cigar. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. So in order to get this cigar, you have to buy a chest of 50. And if they're $15 a cigar, that means you have to pay $750.
Wow. There goes my tax refund.
So today I'm smoking an excellent cigar. It's not quite as good as a Perdomo, in my opinion. But it is a Christoph. Have you ever heard of Christoph?
I have not, no. It's funny, man. I introduced you to cigars, and you know way more about cigars than I do. But what is it?
The most, I would say the most well-known Christoph is the Pissed Off Christoph.
Oh, who'd they make mad?
No. So it's so funny. That's what I thought too. It's not spelled the way that you just thought. It's spelled Pistoff.
Oh, Pissed Off.
No, Pissed Off. Pistoff.
Okay.
The Pissed Off Christoph. Evidently, it's like a name or something.
Ah.
But they did a play on words, and it's a super aggressive cigar, like really spicy, lots of pepper. But Christoph, and the reason it's so popular is because Christoph is not known for their super peppery, spicy cigars.
Right.
They're known for being really smooth. And if you smoke a Christoph cigar, you know it immediately because of the taste. Like, it tastes very specific. It's very smooth. The problem that I have is whatever tobacco, I should have looked up what type of tobacco I'm assuming Lajero. Not Lajero. Whichever tobacco burns really slowly. I have problems sometimes keeping Christophs lit. So if I let it sit for a while, it will go out quicker than others. Sometimes that means because it's over humidified, but this has been, I mean, it's a good humidity level. But that's the only complaint that I have with Christoph cigars is they're amazingly smooth, but you have to keep puffing on it in order to keep it lit.
So if you were on the Hail Mary and you had your box of at the end of your life,
that's what I was thinking.
You would have, like for instance, the Russian lady had vodka, and I can't remember what the other people had. What would you have?
She wanted heroin. Remember?
Was it heroin?
Heroin?
So she wanted to die by heroin, but she also wanted vodka, right? Because she was constantly drinking.
Right.
What would be in your box for your last memory of life? Would it be a cigar?
Oh yeah, 100%. But if you remember, she said she wanted to do several hits of heroin first.
Because she's never done it before.
She wanted it to feel really good. She never done heroin before, which I imagine, like, sure, drugs are bad. Kids, don't do drugs. I've never done heroin before.
Right.
Be cool. Stay in school.
We don't do drugs. So
we do not do drugs.
Preface that.
So we only do cigars. But I imagine if you did heroin for the first time, like, you can imagine it would feel great.
Yeah.
Especially like if it's the first time. And then she was like, okay, I don't remember. It was tell the scientists that I want maximum pleasure for the whatever length of time, and then I just want to overdose,
So dumb.
And you can give me...
I want to OD. That's how I want to go out. How would you go out, though? Like, what would be your... So I'll give a little bit of background. Hail Mary was a One Direction suicide mission to save planet Earth, and the astronauts knew that if they chose to do this mission, then they would never come back home to Earth.
Right.
And so they were all given the way or the means of choose the way they would die, because they wouldn't have enough fuel, wouldn't have enough food to get back to Earth. So they all got to choose their way to die. So we're talking about the Russian astronaut. She chose a heroin overdose. Brian, what would you choose as the way you would die?
So I need to answer your cigar question first. Like, what cigars would I take to smoke
sorry.
as like the last cigars?
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I'm too excited about this book.
It is. It was a really good book, wasn't it?
Super good.
I was kind of worried. We need to hold those two thoughts. So thought number one is what cigars would we smoke, and thought number two is what will we choose to die by suicide. And I forgot what I was going to say.
So what kind of cigars would you take? Or
all right,
what would
question
you?
Number one.
Yeah.
So I would definitely take the Perdomo.
Perdomo or the Perdomo?
Perdomo 30th, because the 30th is even better than the 20th. So you said you have the 20th, right?
For our 20th episode, yes.
For our 20th episode. So the 30th, we'll have to get 30th.
Okay.
For our 30th episode, because the 30th was fantastic. But I would also probably smoke a Davidoff. I'm not a Davidoff fan, but Davidoff is super premium. It has a very unique taste. This is going to sound bad, but it's not meant to detract from it at all. It has a very grassy taste. So it's a very fresh. Mm-hmm. It's a different take on cigars. So just like Christoph has a very unique taste, Davidoff, if I put a Davidoff in my mouth, immediately I'm going to know that it's a Davidoff. And I haven't even smoked a lot of Davidoff because they're so expensive. Wait.
When you say put it in your mouth, I just can't get over that. Okay, go ahead. Sorry to cut you off. You're going to have to get another cigar. You're about through that one.
No. Just thinking of putting this nice big cigar in my mouth. So I would take a Davidoff. I would take a 30th at least. I would probably take the Legacy because I haven't smoked the Perdomo Legacy yet. And then I would have to take Padron.
Okay.
Padron, which you've had so I bought a 10-pack of the 1926 Maduro brand. And I've slowly smoked them over the years. So me and Neil smoked one the night before my wedding back in 8 years ago. But I've kept them. I have 3 left, literally 3, and I'm saving them for the moment that me, you, and Neil are together, whenever that is. And I'm trying to think. The last time we were together was Missouri.
2021.
2.5 years?
No,
was it 2021?
It was Christmas time. 2023. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the next time we're together, which will probably be Christmas of 2027,
right?
I'll save them for then, so that way. But at that point, that means that they've been sitting in my humidor for 12 years. 12 years.
Nice.
That is fantastic, man. Those cigars better be the best cigars we've ever had in my life.
100%.
Yeah, so I would definitely take a Padron. Probably, I really like the 1926, but the 1964 anniversary edition is fantastic as well. Those are the cigars that come off the top of my head. Oh, I would have to take my semi-budget cigar, the Monte Cristo collaboration with AJ Fernandez.
Okay.
Just because I love it. It's $8 for the cigar. I get it at JR's. I smoked it a lot. It brings back fantastic memories. So those are the cigars that I would smoke. Do you have specific cigars that you would smoke if it was your last cigar or your last cigars before you passed away?
Well, you know these cigars better than me. I'm always trying to smoke the cheapest cigar. So, I mean, the best cigar I've had so far is the one I'm smoking right now. So,
yes.
I'd smoke as many of these as I could. But how would you die? Like, what would be your choice if Ava Strat came to you and said, Brian, how are you wanting to die on Project Hail Mary or on the Hail Mary? What would you choose?
So I would choose the same thing as what one of the astronauts chose, which was slowly leak nitrogen into my suit to where I didn't even know. And then the carbon dioxide buildup would get to the point to where I just kind of passed out and then died, but wouldn't know that I was dying. I would choose something like that. But I was quite amused that the Chinese officer, I forgot his name, but he was like, "Give me 9mm." And I was like, you're in a spaceship. Like, what? You're taking a projectile. I don't even know if he did. Dr. Grace, did he use the gun for anything throughout the book? He didn't.
No, he did not.
And now that I'm thinking about it, they didn't even bring up how would you die option in the movie. Like they never they alluded to the fact, and in fact there were points throughout the movie when Dr. Grace was like, this is a one-way trip. I'm not going to make it. And of course Rocky was like, well, I can give you all of my astrophage and then you can make it back to Earth. Oh my gosh, this is an amazing moment. I'm going to live. He's going to live again. I'm going to live again. So
oh man.
but
Let's get into the book, man.
I would have to say the gas.
Okay.
So how would you die?
Well, you know how they downloaded every single book and every single like Wikipedia page? Man, when I heard that, I was like, when he said he was going to go back to Earth and he was contemplating on going back into a coma or not, and it would take 4 years to do it, I would be wanting to read every single book for 4 years so that when I got back to Earth, I would be super smart on every single topic because I've read for 4 years straight, and that's all that I ever did. So that was like intriguing to me to think of that. And it's raining right now, and I'm outside, and my computer and my microphone's here. So hopefully the rain passes by.
This is such a fabulous cigar. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you notice that Brent is now holding an umbrella because it's raining.
I'm singing in the rain. I'm singing in the rain. I mean, I'm podcasting in the rain. Alrighty. All right. Don't ask me how I know that song, man.
It's because we watched Singing in the Rain like 50 million times growing up because that's all that Melinda wanted to watch.
Stop it.
Dun, 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 dun. I'm singing.
We're cutting this out. We better be cutting this out.
No. We're leaving this.
Oh my gosh, man.
So the cool thing about the book, and the reason I was afraid you wouldn't like it, but the reason that it's hit home so much to me is it's conceivably something that could realistically happen.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like there could be an amoeba that develops that feeds off of the heat energy from the sun, effectively draining it, going to Venus to partake in the CO2, have babies, and then go back to the sun for more energy. Like that process... And in effect, draining the sun so that it cools Earth, and then Earth experiences an apocalypse because of it, right?
Right.
That theory is something that could happen, and that's the theory that's introduced in the book and in the movie, of course. And then they have to come up with ways. But it started out where you didn't know what in the heck was going on. Mm-hmm. He wakes up somewhere in this clean room thinking that maybe he's in a hospital, maybe he has some type of disease that's contagious. When you started reading the book, what were you feeling? And also, second question, is this book is extremely detailed. So if you've read The Martian, which I don't think you have, but The Martian is equally extremely detailed to the point to where you're like, wow, yeah, like I've never... So for instance, to figure out whether or not he's on Earth in an Earth facility, he sets up like a metronome and measures the distance that the fulcrum is going back and forth, how fast it slows down to compare it to the gravity that's on Earth. And he figures out the gravity is lower or it's higher where he is, so therefore he's not on Earth. Those types of details were overwhelming in the book, and my nerd brain loves details like that, but your brain is very much different than mine. I mean, I'm wearing a Chateau Picard t-shirt because I'm a massive nerd. Do you even know what this means?
No,
You're
I have no idea.
I'm such a nerd.
I thought it was a winery, Chateau Picard. I thought it was a winery or something.
So it is a winery, but it's a fake winery. Have you ever heard the name Jean-Luc Picard?
Yeah, Star Trek.
Yes. So the captain of the Star Trek Enterprise in The Next Generation, back on Earth, his family owns a winery.
Right.
Where they grow grapes, and they actually introduce that concept in the TV series Picard, where he's back on his homestead, raising the grapes to make wine. This is his family's winery, Chateau Picard.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's like, I'm a nerd, but not many people would know that I'm a nerd because the non-nerds would be like, Oh, yeah, that just looks like a regular winery. No, it's not, my friends. It is a nerdy winery. So I'm curious, the nerdity of this book is extreme, and I was afraid that you wouldn't like it, but how did you feel about it? Like all the details and the opening scene.
Yeah, it's the first fiction book I've read in probably 15 years, but I really liked just the mystery of going back and forth from the present time while he was on the ship and him trying to figure out where he was, what was the purpose of him being on the ship, why was there two dead people, and how did he not know them despite the fact that he was on the ship with them. But I also liked how he would rewind and fill in some of the gaps to explain his character on who he was as a school teacher. And I really thought that part with always keeping me in question on what is going to happen next. I was completely lost almost the whole book because I didn't really know. That's the purpose of a good written book, is you don't know what's going on. You think you might be able to think what's going to happen next, but it kept me in a guessing mindset on. I had
State of suspense.
I had no idea what was going to happen.
State of suspense.
Yeah, I liked
Yeah, exactly.
I liked it when it was going back and forth between him on the ship, him trying to figure out things. And what I thought was cool was I don't have a science brain. I don't know anything about science and like the stuff that you like. I don't really know anything about. Like, for instance, the time dilation
Theory of relativity.
But I liked how he explained it. The complexity of something, he explained it, and I understood that. Like, I understood once he would go through and he would explain. And actually, that was one of the criticisms of the book, was that it was he went in too much detail on why things worked, or him having a problem and him trying to come up with a solution and all being scientific. I liked it. I thought it was something that I told Katie when I was reading this book. I got as much enjoyment from sitting down and reading a couple of chapters out of this book as I would sitting down and watching something interesting on the TV. Like, it sparked my imagination just as much, and I was able to relax while reading it. And that's the purpose of watching TV, kind of shut off your brain and just watch. In this book, you don't have to shut off your brain because you're always thinking about the what ifs and trying to figure out what's going to happen next. So I appreciated how he wrote it from two perspectives, him current on the spaceship, and then the past of it leading up to his departure in the Hail Mary, and then figuring out how he got on the Hail Mary, which was not by choice, which I thought was really interesting towards the end of the book.
Yeah, that was a twist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the theory of relativity, I was first introduced to that concept in the book, The Ender's Game, which we talked about. Ender's Game was one of my top 5 fiction books. But first, can you see why this is my number 1 book? Like, how you know me better than pretty much anybody other than Megan, I would say.
Right.
You know me, and you even know me in ways that my wife does not know me.
No, I don't know you in ways. I know how you think. Let's just put it that way.
So, oh, come on, admit it. You know me,
This
Brent.
is the weirdest podcast already. Let me pull out my pink umbrella real quick. Who was your favorite character in the book? What character did you like the most and why?
Rocky, of course.
Okay.
How could you not like Rocky? Amaze, amaze, amaze. So,
I mean,
so the theory of relativity in the book was first introduced in Ender's Game. And when I first read it, I thought, like, that's impossible. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
But in Ender's Game, there's a soldier who saved Earth from the aliens, and they send him away on a spaceship that's going the speed of light, and then they bring him back like 50 or 75 years later, and everybody's thinking, well, this guy died, but then he comes back and he's only like 5 years older than he was when he left 60 years ago. And people are like, how in the world does this happen? But it's due to the theory of relativity, which means if the closer you get to the speed of light, your perception of time decreases.
Mm-hmm.
So time passes more slowly for people who are going closer to the speed of light versus people who are at rest. And we are moving essentially, but essentially at rest. So this applies, for example, to people who like are truckers. So truckers technically don't age as quickly as those of us who don't drive a lot do, because you get closer to the speed of light. And now it's a minuscule difference. Speed of light is crazy fast, but even going a little bit faster here on Earth means that you age just a little bit slowly. You age according to the rate that your body, it's not like your body slows down, but because your body's moving faster, therefore you age at just a little bit slower. Your clock ticks just a little bit slower than anybody else who doesn't move at a specific speed. And they really play into this, where it was going to take them 3 years or 4 years to get to Tau Ceti in order to test for the astrophage, to see why the sun is not dimming, all of that. But yet it was going to be 13 years back on Earth. That's due to the theory of relativity. This is the first time that you've been exposed to the theory of relativity. So obviously, like, you probably thought it was fake at first. Is that right? Or was your mind blown?
I mean, you explained it to me in the episode when we talked about your top 5 fictional books. So I was more open to it, and it makes sense when you think about space in that way. When you're in space, I guess all the rules are thrown out because of the vastness of space. And these are things that we have not experienced. What I think is really intriguing is the fact that there could be life in another galaxy or in another star system. Why not? Like, why would there not be? Because if you think about the sun, and then the sun was called the Tau Ceti. Is that how you say it?
Tau Ceti.
When you think about it, every solar system has their sun, and each planet that is a certain amount of distance from that sun has the right conditions to breed life. And if you can have a microorganism or a microorganism, right? Organism.
Microorganism.
Right, then you have life. And why not think that there could be another group of people in another star system or another galaxy? It's possible. I don't think
so, especially considering that the universe is infinite. So the universe is not only infinite, but I'm about to blow your brain. The universe is expanding. So I remember the first time that I read that, that concept, I thought, there's no way. The universe is not expanding, but they have established through mathematical principles that the universe is expanding. Like, that's a fact. It's a scientific fact.
Right.
So obviously the one issue with all of this is religion, which religion says that God created the world, the universe, the stars, all of that. And that can be applied to the universe as expanding, because you could just say that when God created the universe, he created the universe to continue expanding. Like, that's conceivable, right? My thought process on this is, why limit, if you believe in the religious aspect of creation and God created the world, if you believe in evolution, yeah, hands down, if the conditions are right on any other planet, the specific distance from the sun, you have the seeds of life. Life can expand and grow, like all of that. And especially considering that the universe is infinite, like it's so massive, there most definitely, just based on statistics, there's most definitely life on other planets. Now, granted, it may have developed in a different way, which was kind of addressed in the book, to where Dr. Grace wrote this paper on, you don't need hydrogen and oxygen in order to create life. You don't need water in order to create life. So are there other forms of life? And I've read books, science fiction books, where you don't necessarily need water to create life. You just need the right combination of other chemicals, and then life will happen out of those chemicals. Point being, I forgot where I was. What was I saying?
Talking about how...
Oh, so the universe is expanding. So if you're looking at the religious perspective, why limit God to one planet?
Yeah.
So if God and so the reason that I went through this in my 20s, like, is creation real? And let's be very clear. There are a lot of things that we don't understand about the world and about the universe that is easily explained by God.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of things, proofs that you can look at and say, oh yeah, that's a God thing, and it makes sense. Evidence that's here on Earth, evidence that's in the universe, the traveling of stars, like all of that. You could say, okay, I can see the point where I can understand if someone believes that God created the universe. And I don't know. Like, let's just be clear. I don't think you know either. Like, I don't know.
Right.
God created the universe. God did not create the universe. I don't know. Both are conceivable. It's conceivable that intelligent design is very plausible, right?
Mm-hmm.
But why limit God to one earth? The reason that I've heard, because I've always wondered, and while I was going through my 20s, I always wondered, why would this infinite, omnipotent, omniscient being need to create these bags of flesh that are completely fallible?
Mm-hmm.
Why would God need to create the angels to worship him? If he's 100% complete in who he is, why would he need anything else other than his own being, his own presence? And the answer to that question was, he created the angels, he created the earth out of fullness. So it's kind of like if you're a baker, you have this desire, and you are through and through, and this is an imperfect example. But if you're a baker, inside through and through, you just have this desire to bake. Like, you can't explain what it is, but inside of you, it's just going to come out, and bread is going to happen because you are a baker. So from the same instance, God is God, and therefore out of his fullness, because of who he is, man just happened. To me, it's not quite an understandable explanation that out of God's fullness, that's the reason that we were created. But if that's the case, out of God's fullness, if we were created, who's to say that he did not also create other planets, other Earths? And it almost even makes more sense, because if out of his fullness, he created us, which eventually the reason that we were created was to worship him and to praise him, why would he not create many universes or many Earths, quote unquote, many planets with life on it, so that he could be worshipped and adored and admired out of his fullness by as many beings as possible? So that explanation 100% makes sense. The evolutionary perspective 100% makes sense. So yes, to answer the question, there's no reason to think from a intelligent design perspective or from an evolutionary perspective why there could not be life. Like, it's almost a given that there is life on other planets. The question is, how far have they evolved? Like, how far along did God create that planet to be? And are we the most advanced planet in the universe? So we like to think of ourselves as we are man.
Or the most recent that was created.
Right, yeah. So I had to think about that for a second. There could be civilizations. He's created 1 million civilizations up to us, and we're the 1,000,001 civilization. Well, we look at our technological advances and all of that. Well, what about a civilization that God created in the past 1 million years ago or 1 billion years ago? Because the time, God is infinite. God is not bound by time. So what if 50 billion years ago he created an Earth and another part of the universe, and the advancements in technology that they've been able to make, like all of that, it's mind-blowing. But point being, it is possible to think that there is life on Earth, and Rocky is absolutely amazing. So I like to describe The Martian as a fantastic book. The Martian is an amazing book, also written by Andy Weir. It has the same scientific detail, but there's no relationship. And because this astronaut is left on Mars, and he has to fend for himself until they can come back to rescue him, and they're not expecting him to live, but he beats all odds. He's able to grow enough calories. He's able to conserve his oxygen, he's able to conserve his heat, all of that, in order to make it out at the end of the book. Sorry, spoiler alert. He makes it out at the end of the book.
I watched the movie.
But in Project Hail Mary, there's an added relationship component, which is the reason why this book is so good. And the best part in the book, I'm curious if you have a best part in the book, but is at the very end whenever they go their separate ways, they're able to grow the Talmiba in order to save their planets. And then they figured that they evolved the Talmiba to be able to get through. I forget the name of the substance.
Xenonite or something like that.
Xenonite. Yep. So it can get, and then he figures out that Rocky, the Xenonite or the Talmiba, has escaped all of their Xenonite containers and has eaten all the amoeba. So he's going to be stranded in space. And Dr. Grace has to make this decision: am I going to just continue on to Earth and leave Rocky, my friend, and his whole civilization, his whole planet to die? Well, they could send, he even said, they could send another spaceship out to save Rocky, and they could figure it out. And Rocky has the knowledge of the Talmiba, and they would figure it. I don't need to essentially sacrifice myself for my friend, but that's a remote possibility. Like maybe they just accept their fate and they die as a planet. So he decides instead to send the Beatles onto Earth, and then accepts the fact that he's going to die because he's going to run out of food. He can't eat erudite food because it's too full of heavy metals and all of that. He sacrifices himself to go save Rocky. And I don't know, like, I don't know about you, but the moment that he reached the ship and he takes his wrench, and he pounds it on the side, and Rocky responds 3 octave levels higher. Grace, he calls him Grace.
Is
Grace,
you
are here. You saved me. You saved me.
Like.
You saved me. like amaze. Like that moment every time. Even I knew that it was coming in the book. That moment, like I break down crying because I'm like, oh my gosh, he was willing to sacrifice his life for this one moment in order to save his friend, knowing that he was going to die.
Well,
that moment is what makes
what I like about that moment was most books are written where you have the hero saves the day, and the hero comes back to Earth and is celebrated as the savior, or is celebrated as the person who did not let Earth and humanity go into extinction.
Right.
But the way he wrote the book was Dr. Grace made this decision to, he knew he was going to die, but then because he got astrophage, is that how you say it? He got that from Rocky. He now could go back to Earth. So the original point was that this was a suicide mission, but Dr. Grace, he accepted that. But when he found out that he could actually make it back to Earth because of the extra fuel that they had, he still chose to die. And to me, that was probably the most emotional part of the book for me, was when he did make the choice to send the Beatles back with the plans and the ability to save planet Earth. But he chose to send the Beatles back and make an attempt to find Rocky in the vastness of like 20 million light years or whatever he said was the span of space he had to cover. But he chose to go back and to save his friend. And to me, that was admirable for him to make that choice, to put himself into a situation where he was going to die, because he had no idea that he could live in Eridan. Is that how you say the planet?
In Erid, E-R-D.
Erid, right? So he chose to save Rocky, but he ended up saving himself, Rocky, and planet Earth. And I thought that was a twist to the story that I wasn't ready for, because I thought he was going to go back to Earth and he was going to make the choice. He's almost sounded like he kept on saying, sorry, Rocky. And I'm like, oh, man, he's made the choice to abandon Rocky and to go back and save planet Earth, because that's what we would do, because those are our human beings. Those are our fellow human beings. But he chose to save Rocky first so that he could also save his planet. I thought that was
well, and it's also interesting how throughout the book you see this moment whenever the lab explodes and the 2 scientists that they were training to go on this mission, they both died, which means that they were left without a scientist. And I was surprised, because you think, oh, this is the hero of the story, and they present him with, look, we have no scientists that are ready to train. This ship is going to leave in 3 weeks. We can't train anybody in that short of a time period. We need you to save Earth. And he's like, give me a moment to think about it. She's like, you have 5
No,
hours.
I'm not going.
And he comes back and he's
I'm
just
not
like,
going.
nope, not dying. Not
Choose
dying
somebody
today.
else, please.
You Earth can go whatever. You can, like, I am not going to be the one to sacrifice myself for Earth. So taking that perspective in contrast with the choice that he made to save Rocky, I don't know it's that he grew as a person or an individual. I think it's because of going back to Lethem theory, interesting enough. It's because he never had any true friends on Earth. He never had anybody that he felt like he wanted to save. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, if you and I think about it, and I think about this all the time, like if I needed to give my life for my wife or my son, I would do so in a heartbeat. I have no problems dying. I have zero problems giving my life for my wife or my son. He was not married. He did not have any kids. He did not have anybody that he was super close to that he felt like, I need to give my life to save somebody that I love so dearly that I don't want them to die.
Well, he gave the his students, which I thought was how the book ended. The very last sentence was how he was actually teaching the Arids, the students in Eridan, right? Iridians. So to me, that was a full.
Be more nerdy,
that was a
dude.
full circle because he was saying, I don't want to go on this trip because I have to be there for my students. And Ava Strat's like, really? Like, you're going to not save humanity, the billions and billions of people, so that you could save 13 students? But I think Ava Strat put that past Dr. Grace because at the very end, his heart all along was to be a teacher. And in fact, during this whole book, the author was teaching us how to solve these problems through science and to be a problem solver. And so when the book ended with him taking questions from the three-finger hands of the people who were like Rocky, to me, that was really cool ending to see that he was living on another planet, but he was also living his life mission of being a teacher even there. Like, he still had purpose. His purpose was to save humanity. Then when he saved Earth and he went and he saved Rocky, then he was able to fulfill his life mission, which was to be a teacher. So I thought it was a good way to define him being a hero and him living out his identity, living out what he wanted to do with his life.
And I never saw that connection, like teacher, and you're a teacher.
Yeah. Like,
did you feel that in any way? Like his connection to his students? No. Okay. So the one thing that I absolutely love about this book is that it literally is a book about love.
It's friendship.
I think the reason
it's a book about friendship.
Beautiful. Yes. Is because he never grew to really love anybody on Earth. He never knew the true meaning of love, which is the reason why he chose not to die, which is the reason he chose not to sacrifice himself for Earth, because he loved nobody more than he loved himself. But then that's contrasted with the end of this book where he spent 6 months, maybe, with Rocky. And literally, during that 6-month period, he grew to know, I almost said he grew to love another human being, but he grew to love another individual. It wasn't even a human. So much that he went from, heck no, I'm not sacrificing myself for anybody on Earth. You guys can go suck it. To, I'm willing to, not even necessarily for the Iridian people, but for Rocky. For Rocky, he was willing to give his life. He was not even willing to give his life for his own kind. For other humans.
Rocky also almost died to save Dr. Grace when the centrifuge went into like 8G or something. So Rocky could only breathe ammonia. And he, on the Hail Mary, Rocky built this tunnel system so he could maneuver himself in the Hail Mary. And it was a tunnel system, instead of oxygen, like we would breathe oxygen, he would breathe ammonia. But he broke out of that tunnel or that tunnel system to save an unconscious Dr. Grace. And I think that's why in the back of Dr. Grace's head, that was why he made that choice to save Rocky, because Rocky, we don't know because Dr. Grace was unconscious, but Rocky made the decision to give up his life earlier in the book to save Dr. Grace. And so I think that helped Dr. Grace with the ability to make the decision. It was an easy decision for him. I can say both. I can send the Beatles back to Earth, and I can also go and save Rocky. I thought that was just a really good, I think it just showed the humanity of human beings, how we do want to help people, and Dr. Grace also wanted to help people. I have a question for you. There's one other person in the story that also wanted to help humanity. Who do you think that was?
Dr. What's her name? I think I forgot her name. The head scientist,
Ava Straight.
Ava Straight. So I think she had a deep love for humanity because she was willing. She understood. Look, once this is all done, they might put me on trial. Right. They will probably kill me because of like all the rules that I've broken and like how I've sacrificed so much. They're probably going to put me on trial, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison. But because I love humanity so much, I'm willing to do what it takes in order to save humanity. Did you have somebody else in mind?
That's who I thought. So was she a hero or was she a villain in the story? Because if she's a hero, if you say that Ava Straight is a hero, you can say, yeah, she did everything to save humanity. She made the hard decisions that other people couldn't make. She prioritized the 8 billion people on Earth over the 3 people, or in this case, Dr. Grace, who did not have a choice to go on the trip. She prioritized the death of those 3 people, and even the 3 people that were the backups. She prioritized them, right, which would make her look like a hero because she is
almost like an anti-hero.
But if she's a villain, she had all power of all the governments. Everybody answered to her and to her only. She might have made some immoral decisions. There's a lot of gray area decisions that she had to make. And so I really liked her character because at first she was painted as a villain. But then if you look at her character a little bit deeper, she was actually a hero because, like you said, she was willing to go on trial, to be put in jail for the rest of her life. So my question to you is, when extinction is on the line, who are you prioritizing? Are you prioritizing the greater good of all of humanity? Or are you going to be that villain who makes those decisions to literally ask people to die for humanity? What would you do? What would you choose?
I mean, I had the thought for a second, like, would I sacrifice myself? But it comes back to love. Like, would I sacrifice myself for Megan and Eli? 100%. And if they needed a sign language interpreter out in space in order to save humanity, someone who is really good with their hands and communicating through gestures and, all of that. And they said, Brian, you are the one, you have the greatest skill set. You're the best interpreter in the world. And I'm like, oh, yeah, But if they said your skill set is something that they specifically needed, would I go in order to save my wife and my son? I think I would. I don't. So it is a tough decision. I would have to look at the possibility of success. And if there was a 1 in a million chance or 1 in 100 million chance that Earth would be saved, which they kind of allude to, like it's the Hail Mary.
The last, yeah.
Like how many Hail Marys actually, how many Hail Mary passes are actually caught? I'm sure there's a percentage. And I would have to say, okay, yeah, this is not going to work, guys. Like, are we really being serious? I'm not going to give up the last 20, 30 years of my life and not spend it with my wife and son living out my time on Earth for some remote, like beyond remote possibility that we can save Earth. Ew, no, right? But if there was a strong possibility, I would. So that's kind of the caveat that I would have to say. If they looked at you and they said, we need the best looking, most proficient PE teacher in the world who can play dodgeball like nobody else
dodgeball.
That has your knowledge.
So being a deaf interpreter, so another language, because American Sign Language and Indian Sign Language is another language. So when
Right.
when Rocky and Dr. Grace were trying to figure out how to understand each other, for instance, Rocky, how my mind wrapped around Rocky and the way he spoke is like a piano playing a song. And so they started, first of all, with what they both knew, which was science and math, numbers, right?
Numbers.
So,
1, 2,
right.
3, 4,
and then
5.
they
Yeah.
moved from numbers to more symbols and patterns. And then with because earth science and technology was more advanced than Rocky's
Mm-hmm.
technology.
Technology.
So he would write down what these musical sounds sounded like, and he would equate that to the English language in this case, because he's American. So with the linguistic side of that part of the book, and because I don't know another language, how did that speak to you when they're trying to figure out what they're both saying? Because you have the experience of learning a new language and then trying to communicate with someone who can't speak. So what patterns or similarities did you get from Rocky and Dr. Grace trying to communicate each other with how you try to communicate on a daily basis with someone who can't speak? Because someone who can't speak, who's deaf, might have the same frustrations that Rocky and Dr. Grace had when they first met. What were some things you took from that?
Right. So more than American Sign Language, because that was one of the portions of the book where you're like, oh, this is completely possible. Mind blown. How did he think of this? I also play the piano. And so whenever he talked about it was the AEG chord on the MIDI program that he was running in order to figure out this set of chords matched with this word, which is the reason why he was able to create the lexicon, was no different. I have the piano right there. Like you can see it back in the corner. You won't be able to see it. I could turn my camera to where you can see it, but it's right there. That way you can see it on the YouTube video. But more than American Sign Language, it had something to do with my ability to play the piano, because it totally makes sense that a language would be based on music, where if you play a certain set of chords, and there's an infinite set of possibilities when it comes to chords, like an infinite set of, not infinite, near infinite set of combinations on octaves and specific notes and in between notes, all of that. The MIDI sound recording system could pick all of those details up. And if you play a C and an E together, well, that means this word. If you play a C and an F together, well, that means that was completely mind-blowing. And his ability to connect those sounds. But if you think about it too, it's just sound. So whenever I say the word sound, like it has, if you think about it, it's SOND. Like that's a specific chord that we're playing with our mouth. It's no different than if it's just the musical notes without the consonants and vowels attached to it. So more than, yes, there was definitely connection with interpreting and figuring out another language and the gesturing that was used. And I laughed so hard at the part whenever he showed him the model of the spaceship, and then he showed him the model of Dr. Grace, and he's like, go into the spaceship. And he didn't get it at first. He was like, what? Like, oh, yes, that's my spaceship. No. And he did it again. And he did it again. Like, go into the spaceship. He's like, oh, you want me to go into the spaceship. I get it. Like, that's the frustration that deaf people have when they're trying to communicate with hearing people. But that was only a very small part. I was kind of disappointed that there wasn't more like sign language in the book. But the mind-blowing part was, oh, yeah, it totally makes sense that a certain set of chords would correlate with a certain word in the English language, and how he's able to pick up on that. And eventually he didn't even need the computer program because he heard the sound. Oh, that sound means this word. And it was just at that point training his brain to understand that if I hear a C chord, well, then that means this word. If I hear a G chord, if I hear a G minor chord, well, that means this, that, and the other. And he was able to communicate fluently with him because it was language. And that was so beautiful.
Some of
I did want to...
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I thought some of the funny things was when 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 they did something that they liked, and you know how on Earth, well, you know how we go fist bump? And Rocky, the first time he did it was he said, "Fist me."
No, he said fist me. He also said
fist
my bump
or fist me or something like that. And
he said fist me. He said
fist
both
me.
of those.
And it was just I laughed at that because those were the small little parts of humor that he brought into the Rocky character. Just because, and he kept on saying how humans were weak and humans were stupid because they didn't have the memory that Rocky had. And I really liked that part. And one of the parts I really liked too that he put into the book was when Rocky would ask a question, he would end what he was saying with question. And in English, we just our enunciation or voice inflection goes higher. But to Rocky, he would say, "How is your day?" question. And I really liked that part. To me, that was just a good usage of the character for Rocky. So those were the little things that built the character, though. And it also built the relationship between Rocky and Dr. Grace. And even though Rocky wasn't a human being, it made him more humanized and made him more of a realistic, emotional character as opposed to just a alien who has no emotion, who has no capacity to love and to care. But Rocky did. And Rocky did care about Dr. Grace. Dr. Grace did care about Rocky. And that relationship that was built, I think this book was a big part of what friendships would look like if we separate race, sex, all the other things that separate us from other human beings. If we would just accept other human beings for who they are and for not what they could give us, but to mutually help each other, to mutually care about each other, to help us get to, in this case, they're trying to just stay alive. Humanity would be a lot better off because we care about the other person for not what they can necessarily give me, but who they are. And we love them and we like them not because of how they look. I thought that was a very good humanization of Rocky.
Yeah. So, and if you think about it, we evolved or whatever to be independent because if you're an amoeba, like you have to prioritize self-survival in order to continue. And then you have to replicate your genes by having children and all of that. So up to this point in humanity's development, self-focus and self-independence has been of a priority. Well, we've reached the point to where we've overpopulated the planet. The only way that we're going to be successful from here on out is if we change our focus from, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take lots of people seeing this point to where in order for us to be successful as a world, we're going to have to prioritize others over prioritizing ourselves and seeing past sex, gender, race, identity, all of that, and being willing to help our fellow man. That's the only way like Earth is going to reach that success point. I did want to point out with sign language in the book, you notice that he ended all of his questions with the word question. It's very similar. He has a deep understanding of language in order to be able to write something like that in his book. That's very similar to how sign language is. Sure, you can ask questions whenever I sign something, you have the furrowed brows like this. And if I turn my head and if I said something like, what color? No, I'm not going to put any inflection in my voice. What color are your headphones? You know that I'm asking a question because of my facial expression. But sometimes in sign language, it's not only based on facial expression, you also end the sentence with the word question. And you actually sign your headphones color black question. Like you sign question at the end of that sentence. So it's very similar to sign language in that sense. So that was just a mind-blowing perspective. And I saw that and I didn't even think twice because that's what we do in sign language a lot of times. We don't do it in English because it's understood that it's a question. Like what color are your headphones? Are they black? Like the intonation, but deaf people don't have that. They don't have the intonation of your voice. And so, yes, we'll do it with the furrowed brows, but also be like, your headphones, black? Question? Question? And it's even emphasis. Like if it's a really deep question, we'll sign it twice. Like question. Or if it's like, if this is a big question, we'll sign it like this, question. So see how the question mark is one finger? Like that's like one question. If it's like, wow, this is really puzzling, question. Do you see how I incorporate all 8 fingers? So it's very similar to how the communication was between Rocky and Dr. Grace when he would make the statement and then end it off with question. So it was interesting how the parallels were with the languages. But it was just something that was second
one thing
nature.
that I wish he would have went more into was what was happening on Earth during that 26-year period. And I wish he would have went more into what was happening, because that was also a big part of why they were there in space anyway, trying to figure out a way to save planet Earth. I wish he would have went into more detail on what was happening on Earth, because at a certain point, those characters were never brought back up. Like, what happened to Ava Strait? What happened to his students? Because he kept on talking about, my students are probably in their early 40s by now because of the time dilation. So that's one thing I wish he would have went more into detail. I think it would have been something that would have been intriguing more to me. I don't know if there was anything.
Project Hail Mary 2?
I thought that as well, that there could have been like a second book into it, but he kind of ended the book with that not being a possibility.
So they did find out at the end of the book, Rocky comes to Dr. Grace and says, your son, Soul, has gone back to 100% brightness, which means that the beetles that they sent with the Talmiba inside, they were able to break into it, figure out how to implant Venus with the Talmiba, so that way they can control the manifestation, the spreading of the astrophage. And that was just like a big moment to him, because he had sacrificed himself for Earth and for Arid, and he didn't know whether or not the beetles made it back to Earth, whether or not they had received the beetles and knew what to do with the Talmiba, like all of that. Just didn't know. But at the end of the book, he says, your son is back to 100% capacity, which meant that everything that he had sacrificed was worth it. But I always wondered if they were going to come out with a second book.
Another thing that there was always tension in the book. There was always an opportunity to solve a problem. But I also felt that every problem that came up was able to be solved. And there was nothing that was left lingering that Dr. Grace and Rocky could not solve. I know there was some situations when Dr. Grace found out that the astrophage had been eaten, and he had to go in and clean all of his tanks out with nitrogen. That was a point in the story that I was like, okay, something really bad's going to happen, and they're not going to be able to save Earth. They're not going to be able to fulfill their mission. And I always felt that, I know Dr. Grace is a very smart guy, but I always felt that he was always able to solve every single problem. And I think if he was able to not solve a couple of problems and to really put a dent in the storyline was something that they just had, obviously they had no control over a lot of things, but if they just didn't have a solution for one or two things, I thought that would have also made the book maybe a little bit more interesting and more keep me at the edge of my seat, because when you watch movies, you always come to the climax of the movie where it just seems like all hope is lost. And I never felt that in this book. I always felt like there was always hope. There was always an opportunity for a problem to be solved. But there was never a situation that was not solvable. I don't know how you felt about that, but that was something that I wrote down I thought was kind of interesting.
They did come close. So I felt like they may not succeed whenever they were trying to collect the Talmiba from Adrian.
When they had to do the 10-kilometer chain links, right?
Right. At that point, there was a moment when I thought they may not succeed. Like when I was reading the book, I thought, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen? Or I thought that maybe one or the other would die. Like I had thought whenever they were spinning and whenever Rocky sacrificed himself, either Dr. Grace or Rocky was going to die in that scene. And that's obviously when you die, that's an unsolvable problem. So that kind of kept me on my seat, was that moment in time when they were trying to collect.
So this is the second time that you've read this book. What did you get from the book the second time, or the details the second time you read it? Because I had the plan. I read 100 pages in the first day. I started this last Thursday. I read 100 pages. I'm like, oh, I'm going to read this book twice by the time we get to our podcast. But I did. I didn't have enough time. I finished it on, what's today, Saturday? I finished it Thursday night. So what did you get? What details that made more sense or that you liked more the second time from reading the book than what you read from the first time you read it?
That's a tough question, because when I read a book, the way that I process the information, I remember a lot of it. I don't have, not even close to photographic memory, but I remembered each of the plot points, and this is my favorite book. So as I was going through it, like there were no points in the book that I had forgotten. I think the best addition that I can recommend to this book is to watch the movie. And the reason that I say that, I'm going to give you, it's not really a plot point in the movie, but in the movie at the very end, they do go into what happened to Earth and what happens to Dr. Ava Stratt at the very end of the movie. And something else that was super cool in the movie, remember how Dr. Grace was constantly saying, I wish I could see an alien ship. Like, I wish I could go onto your ship, but I would never survive in your atmosphere. In the movie, he gets the chance to go on the ship. And the ship in the movie looks completely unlike anything that I had pictured. Rocky, I knew that he looked kind of like a spider. I knew that he had hard skin. In the book, they literally depicted him as like this rock creature, more like, I don't know, a rock creature in a fantasy movie rather than a spider. I think they did that on purpose. There was one jump scene in the movie, but that's it. Like, other than that, nothing was scary. Other than the suspenseful moments when they were trying to get the Talmiba from Planet Adrian, like all of that. But in the movie, at the very end, after they receive the beetles, they show Dr. Ava Stratt. The Earth is really cold. She's on a ship. She's plowing through the ice on this ship. She receives the information. We've received the Talmiba. We're going to be able to save Earth. And the camera like zooms in on her, and she just smiles. So they do kind of finish it up in a way to where you realize, okay, they didn't, try Dr. Ava Stratt. She saved the Earth. So that was a nice little detail that they added in the book, or they added in the movie. Also, at the end of the movie, whenever he's teaching the class of Iridians, the children Iridians who are 30 or 40 years old, which is children,
like
since
800
to be
800 years old,
800 years old. As he's teaching them in the movie, Rocky comes up to him and says, "We now have the ability to send you back to your home planet. Will you go?" In the book, it was presented like Dr. Grace at this point was older. He was in his 50s or 60s. The gravity on Arid was so much so that it was messing with his internal organs and his joints. And he didn't know if he could make the trip back home, which would have been 7 or 8 years of a trip for him to get all the way back to Earth. And in the book, it was kind of like, oh yeah, he's just going to stay on Arid and die, right? In the movie, Ryan Gosling is a younger individual. He's maybe, Ryan, I don't know how old he is. He looks younger. That's why he's so popular. So good looking kind of thing,
Yeah.
But he looks younger.
Nothing.
What?
No, nothing.
What? No. Okay. But he looks younger, and Rocky comes to him and says, "We have enough astrophage and food. They figured out food that he could eat." Which I'm curious about the me burger.
Oh,
and
yeah.
What you think about that? Would you eat a me burger?
No way.
But he says, well, if it's life or death.
I don't know if I could. But that was cool. Like, the me burger was, if people haven't watched the movie or listened or read the book, the me burger, correct me if I'm wrong, he would take parts of him the me burger was parts of his flesh.
Well, they had figured out how to replicate his
Right.
own flesh. So they had taken samples of his flesh, figured out the chemicals and the bonds that make up that type of meat, and then were able to essentially grow it
Right.
in the lab, which is something that
Right.
we do today. Like if you think about it, what do they call it? Not Forever Burger, Impossible Burger.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have the Impossible Burger at Burger King. That's essentially like they've added the chemical components in order to make it taste like meat. That's kind of what I thought about. Was they took the building blocks of life and were able to grow it in the lab so that he could eat himself. It wasn't himself or pieces of him. It was just the building blocks of life so that he could have meat to eat in order to nourish his body. Like that's so in that case, yes, like I would eat it if that's the case. But at the very end, Rocky sits down with Dr. Grace and he says, "We've filled the ship." He looks young enough, and they don't talk about the maladies that his body has developed because of the higher gravity or anything like that. And at the very end of the movie, Dr. Grace is like, "I don't know if I want to make the trip back to Earth. I'll have to think about it." And Rocky's response is, "Yes, you think about it for a very long time, as in, I don't want you to leave."
Right.
And then he goes into the classroom, he teaches the students, asks us the final question, what's the speed of light or whatever? And you see all these baby Iridians raising their three-finger claws, wanting to answer the question. And then the movie ends. So the movie itself left an opening for Dr. Grace to be able to go back to Earth when I felt like in the book it wasn't really possible. Did you feel like it was possible for him to go back in the book?
Just because he talked about how the gravity had hurt his joints, and it almost sounded like he was ready to die on Arid. That's what it felt like in the book. This is way off topic, but another thing that I thought was intriguing was them blowing up how many nuclear bombs in Antarctica to create heat on Earth. This is first part of the book, but part of the strategy to keep Earth alive while the ship was on its mission was to warm up the Earth's atmosphere, or to warm up the Earth's temperature. And they decided, I don't know who thought this was a good idea, hey, let's blow up Antarctica and let's put 20 atomic bombs underneath the ice caps of Antarctica, and that would release the radiation, which was actually what killed all of
greenhouse gases.
That radiation.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but radiation was also what killed the 23 other people like Rocky on their ship, because they had never been exposed to the radiation. And so I don't know if there's any correlation with Earth using radiation to keep humans alive, but the Iridians would die if they were exposed to that radiation. And I don't know if there's any correlating part that he was trying to get across with a contrast with how radiation actually was saving humans, but then the radiation would actually kill the Iridians. I don't know if you caught that one, but that was something that I thought was well written.
It was interesting how they were releasing the gases from Antarctica that were caught underneath the ice in order to warm up the planet so that they could essentially save humanity until they could figure out a solution to this problem. That was the radiation that the Iridians experienced was a little bit different in that it was radiation from space, because the humans would have undergone the same radiation issues, but they had solved that problem by placing astrophage, like thin layers of astrophage in the ship itself, so that the astrophage would block the radiation that was coming into the ship. They didn't know to do that in the Iridian ship, and therefore 23 of his shipmates died. And the only reason he was alive was because his workshop was covered by the fuel tanks, which is where the astrophage was. So it is an interesting connection. It was just another interesting plot point in the book. So after reading it, like, what do you think? Would you give this 5 stars?
So, the only thing that I did not like about reading fiction is I like to journal what I'm reading through. And because there was no life application for me. And I'm always trying to apply things to my life to grow as a person. And part of that process for me is writing, journaling. For instance, we're reading Ryan Holiday. It's every single chapter every single chapter you could write. Yeah, I did.
Did you hear that? I thought I had muted myself. I thought I muted myself.
I heard it all.
That was a nice burp.
So that's the only thing that I didn't like about the book was it wasn't a waste of time. I'm not going to say it was a waste of time for me, but it's not what I enjoy doing. But I was thinking, because the whole purpose of our podcast is to just talk. And the original plan was for us to talk through, we had like 50 different topics that we were going to talk over. But then you came up with a brilliant idea to read books. And the whole part of the podcast and the whole part of our philosophy with the Two Bros Lit podcast is to grow as people, to grow as brothers, to grow as husbands, fathers. You know, that's something that we both seek. With reading fiction, I don't get that self-fulfillment, but I want to throw something at you. What if every fifth book that we read something like this? Because I will say I've never sat down and read for 2 hours straight. Usually I'm reading for 45 minutes or 30 minutes. But with this book, I felt like it disciplined me even more to read because I enjoyed it so much that I would sit down for 2 hours straight and I would read. And reading is just something that's so healthy for you mentally because of it. It just takes out all distractions. It creates a fantasy and a creativity that reading nonfiction books doesn't give you. And so I think that part of reading this fictional book actually will help me become a better reader in the future. So with that, I want to read more fiction. And I also think that in any relationship, you have to give and take what you like to do with what the other person likes to do. You know, I like nonfiction. I know you love fiction. And so I think it's a really good compromise to explore more of these books because it just deepens the conversation. And I was probably more excited to talk about this book than any of the other books that we've discussed. I love Ryan Holiday. I love Stoicism. But this book, I want to read more stuff like this because I think the conversation is more genuine in some ways because we're not trying to sound smart. You know, we're burping. We got my umbrella, you know, keeping the rain off me. But I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I'm open and want to read more fictional books.
Yeah, so I have no problem with reading fiction books. For me, it's about motivation. For example, I've already read one additional fiction book, and I'm halfway through another fiction book. So I read The Will of the Many, which is a 600-page book. So I put down Project Hail Mary on Thursday of last week, picked up The Will of the Many, which is an excellent book. Wow, mind-blowing. One of the best books I've ever read. Definitely top 5 material. And I read that from Thursday to Monday. That's a 600-page book. And then I picked up another fiction book. It's a Star Trek book. And I'm about halfway through that, so about 300 pages into that. I don't have any problems. And I go through phases where I read a lot and then I don't read as much. I go through phases. But the motivation to read fiction, don't have a problem with it. The motivation to read self-help books like Ryan Holiday and Let Them Theory and other books like that, I don't necessarily have because I start to get bored with them. Where you are, and I've already said this, like I have problems with journaling. I have problems with writing down my thoughts. Where that excites you, it doesn't excite me. So I'm more than happy to throw in fiction books. 1 in every 5. I don't know, that seems like we can talk about it. Definitely. Especially if it's something that you really want to do. There are other books on my top 5 list that I can recommend. Lots of really good books like this that I can recommend. But as far as motivation goes, I need the motivation of the podcast to read the books that I probably wouldn't read otherwise. I guess that would be my response.
No, and I was just thinking, we talked a little bit about this last week, but if I look back over when we started this at the end of December to now, I've always been, when I was coaching, everything, every minute, every second was geared towards becoming a better coach. And when you take something out of your life that helps you grow and helps you become a better person. I don't know if I was becoming a better person while coaching. You got to replace it with something. And this podcast and reading books, I look back over the last 3 to 4 months, tremendous growth, and just in my own personal life. And so I think it's just a healthy thing to read those non-fictional books, because you do have an opportunity to become a better person. And so, I mean, I don't think that like reading fiction is necessarily wrong, but I think you painted the picture well, in that this is what motivates you and excites you, and you're doing things that excites me. And so I guess on the reciprocal side, I want to do things that also excites you, that you're very interested in. And to me, the Project Hail Mary was a great start to my fictional career of reading fiction books.
I love it. The question is, Katie gonna read?
So Soren just finished. He's on the last book of.
I have a book for Soren.
No. So Soren is he just read the last Harry. He's on his last Harry Potter book. So he's been listening to an audiobook. He follows along in his book. And Katie was like, "Well, what books are we going to read next?" Because we want to keep Soren reading. And I recommended, I think Soren would like Project Hail Mary if he listened to it on the audiobook side. And he could also, it's an easy enough read that he could also follow along in the book as he's listening to it on audio. And so I think that might be Soren's next book, because we were at dinner the other night and he sat down on my lap facing me and he's like, "Daddy, tell me about Project Hail Mary. I want to know about the book." So I sit there and I try to explain to him about the characters and the plot line. And so, I think Katie would be interested in Project Hail Mary. We were going to go see it last night, but taxes came and I had to do taxes. So if we get done here, let's see, it's 3:30, 4 o'clock my time. I think the movie shows tonight at 7:30. So that's still an option for us to go and watch it this evening.
It's a really good movie. So it will definitely be top 5 of movies for me. I will watch it again. It will be one of those movies that I will buy. Maybe not the moment that comes out. I'll wait till it gets on sale. But I don't buy many movies to have them. But this will be a movie that I buy because I know that I'm going to rewatch it over and over again, just because of the awesome thing about the movie is it's the same storyline, but you connect with Rocky and Dr. Grace in ways that you did not connect with them in the book. So in the book, you imagine, and it's almost dark. It's dark in the movie, like Earth is going to die. That's dark. But they liven it up in ways that's just hilarious. The funny moments are funnier, not necessarily funnier than the book, funny in a different way. And the darker moments are darker in a different way, but it's the same story. But still, they did an amazing job at adapting the book and improving upon it. Like at the very end, when in the book you didn't know what happened to Dr. Ava Stratton or whatever her name is. You had no idea. But at the end of the movie, they show her and you're like, okay, I get it. And at the end of the movie, there's also like this, will they make a second movie? Question. Yeah. Right? So they play with stuff like that in the movie. It was really good. It's a great family movie. There's no point other than it being a little suspenseful at points. Like I think it's rated PG-13, but there's nothing bad. In fact, there are moments whenever he hurts himself and he goes to say a curse word and he's like, "Oh, son of a biscuit eater," or something like that, right?
I forgot one part of the movie that was really, really funny was when the backup so they had 3 main people, like the engineer, the scientist, and other people in they had backups just in case the 3 main people would go die, right? If one of them died.
I know what you're going to say. They don't talk about that in the movie.
It was funny because they were so open about. I don't know their names. Maybe you know their names, but
I think No, I'm not gonna say it. I was about to say
No,
Commando
it
Yao.
wasn't. No,
I don't know that. Yeah, it was such
no,
a common
but it was
Chinese
like the
name.
two people who had the same job. So one was the boys, I think, was the guy, and then there was a female who was his backup, and then they had a romantic relationship in the book, and it was just so funny because he was like, "Hey, we have 12 minutes in between this debriefing. Do you want to go have sexual intercourse?" And stuff like that, like just the blatant,
Yes.
just throwing it out there and having no shame. But it was not in a way that was dirty or obscene. It was funny because it was like a nerd talking on trying to flirt with another nerd, and so they would use these scientific words to describe something that maybe in modern day language would describe it in a dirty way. I just thought that was hilarious. I thought that was a funny part of the book that we didn't talk about yet.
I mean, that's how I am. I'm like, Megan, we have 12 minutes before we leave to take
sexual
Eli to soccer practice.
intercourse.
Would you
Question.
like to have wait, hold on. Physical intimacy?
That was so funny. That was a good break that was needed in the book. And I was wondering where he was going to go because, like, please don't go into like a romantic novel, steamy type dirtiness, but he didn't. So that was appropriate, I thought.
Mm-hmm. So you have to watch the movie tonight, and you have to let me know how much you love it, because I already know that you're going to love it. It's going to be amazing. Yeah. Soren's going to love it. Soren will love it more than Katie. Katie's kind of like, which you're pretty normal, but Megan is like the opposite of me. I am like nerd, right? Question? Yeah. No question. Megan is like, cool. Wow, you're awesome. How in the world did you end up with this nerd? You're beautiful and amazing, right? So that's Katie in your relationship. So Katie will enjoy the movie. She'll love it, right? But she's like the cool one in the relationship. But Soren is definitely very nerdy like I am. So therefore, he will love the movie. There were moments throughout the movie I just burst out laughing. And I'm literally in a theater filled with 100 other people, and I'm one of the only people laughing in the whole theater. And I'm like guffawing. Yeah. I'm like,
did you cry in the movie?
And nobody else. Okay, I did cry. Yeah, okay, I cried in the movie. So but I cried not necessarily because the movie. There were definitely moments when you will feel emotional in the movie, but I cried because I knew the backstory of the book and the sacrifices. And so when, like, it's almost anticipatory crying, where it's like, I know this is going to happen. Oh my gosh, it happened. And then, I cried during the movie. So it was really good. I cried more in the book than I did the movie. Like, it hit me harder, even reading it through the second time. It was more emotional reading the book, but the emotions of the book came over into the movie. I can see where you wouldn't cry for the movie, but having read the book, like, you might. Like, was there ever a moment when you just felt like...
Well, no, you told me that you had cried at the ending, you had cried during the middle parts of the book, and me personally, I was waiting for those moments, and I never got there. I was like, when am I going to cry? When am I going to get, like, emotionally touched? But...
Hold on. It's right here. N.
Oh yeah, it's right on your forehead.
Right. No, just right there.
But I'm not that type of emotional. I don't get those emotional connections in a lot of ways, anyway. So, yeah.
And that is partly who I am. Like, I feel
the empathy. The empathy.
Very deeply.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yep. All right, so we got to end this conversation. Next book we're going to be reading, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And we have a list of books that we're going to be... We need to talk about like what we're going to do after that. But Can't Hurt Me is the next one. And then during that episode, whenever we record, we'll talk about the next books that we're going to read. Okay. We have Meditations that I'm really interested in reading by Marcus Aurelius. And I don't know if you want to get that.
I probably will. Yeah,
I about said
the different
translation.
author. It's a different author.
It is
yeah.
translation. McKay's, I think, is the Gregory McKay's or something like that. But anyway, maybe that one. I would love. That's my vote on because I would love to read that book, and I would like the motivation to be able to read that book. And then we have a lot of other nonfiction, and then as you said, like we'll have to throw fiction book in
man.
there.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. So follow us on social media, at Two Bros Lit on all the different social media platforms out there. And
all right, man.
we'll
Have
talk
a
next
good one.
episode.
I'll see you.